All right, so very good evening to all of you, cherished viewers, and thank you very much for joining us on UPfront. So, we now do know that it is going to cost the country 200 million Ghana cedis in providing water for Ghanaians free of charge from April, May to June. For some of you, even though you support this, you believe there should be means testing, and so those who cannot afford are those who should be provided with this free water. Now, bearing in mind that the former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan actually talks about the fact that if there's ever going to be anything that would cause a third world war, then that is probably at our doorsteps now, and it's going to be the fight for water. This evening, our focus is on the provision of free water and Ghana's water resources or water bodies. Can the country's water bodies support the provision of free water? Bearing in mind that once there's, the provision of free water, there's a possibility of an increase in demand for water. And to help us have a better understanding of all of these issues, we've been joined by one man who knows it all. So tell us, is it really possible to supply water freely to all Ghanaians?
Yes, the answer I will say no, but it will also be yes. We will explain as we go.
We definitely would explain when we return after this break. My name is Winston, and this is UPfront on JoyNews. So welcome back from that short break, and thank you very much for staying with us. And so joining us for the conversation this evening is Dr. Emmanuel Bequin, who is head of Surface Water Division and also a senior research scientist of the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, Water Research Institute. Dr. Bequin, good evening, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening.
And I believe you're doing very well.
I'm great.
And you're excited about the fact that we're providing, free water for all Ghanaians for the next 3 months.
Excited in a way, but not totally.
When you say you're excited in a way, but not totally, what do you mean?
What I mean is, considering the fact that as a country, even though the resources are quite okay, if you look at our statistics in terms of water availability, we do have problems with infrastructural water development. What it means is, yes, even though we have the resource in abundance in quotes, getting it to people's homes actually is a problem, and that is an issue we have to resolve.
So is it a case that we cannot provide free water to all Ghanaians based on the challenges that you've talked about?
Free water availability, like I said, availability of the water resource is okay, but how do we get it to people? Because yes, if you are with the government establishment, for sure, government can always invoke whatever it is to have people who work for government to actually do what government wants. But for the guy in the private sector, the guy who has sunk his whole borehole and is actually making money from his commercial use, how do you ask such a person to provide free water? But this percentage of people also in the country are a lot, about 15 to 20% of persons are into these private businesses. And those people, the question is, how do we get the water to them freely? That is the question. If government can answer, can satisfy the question you just asked, that.
We'll get to that particular because, the Minister of Water Resources and Sanitation has been talking about this. But when you say, for instance, when you make the point that the resources are available, but getting it to the people is the problem. Talking about availability and getting it to the people, we know that 85% of Ghanaians have access to water, yes. Safe water. But even there, the challenge is that water in many of the instances is rationed. So where lies the availability if we have to be rationing water to people and we can't get all Ghanaians to have water?
Yes, for us in the research establishment, that is working with water research, is where our main aim is actually doing research into all the water issues of the country. And we've done studies and we have really computed how much water there is. We have in surface waters and some other parts also the groundwater, but generally the surface waters that we have, comparing it with the per capita, where we say per capita, that is the amount of water individual desires to have for a day. If you should divide it for the whole country, it's adequate. But the question,
and so if you divide it for the whole country, what constitutes the adequacy you're talking about?
When you divide it to the whole country, like I said, for rural areas, we talk about 15 liters to 20 liters per person per day. When you come to the urban centers, we are talking about 50 to about 200 liters per person per day, 50 liters of water per person per day. But we are saying, assume we should give to everybody in the country about 50 liters per person per day. Based on the computation that have been done by various studies within the country, we are almost okay with such figures.
So that is when it comes to our water bodies.
Our water bodies, yes.
But when it comes to our production capacity,
yes.
Are we enough? Do we have enough?
No. The production capacity, we don't have enough. We don't have enough because, yes, the water resources, if you take Densu, you take the river, Volta, there's the resources there, it's there in quantities. If you take Densu, for instance, there's so much water, and I even understand the amount of water that Wager generates for Accra is far less than half. I think less than 30%, which means that we have the resource. But the issue we have as a nation is where people or we don't have the means, the logistics, to actually convert the resource through infrastructure into people's homes. That is where the issue is. Because we do have the water, but just imagine taking Wager and then the Volta. Look at all the developments that have actually been undertaken within these areas. What is happening is these developments were put up some years back during the independence time and whatnot. We should have done some more developments on some of these things. Unfortunately, somehow we haven't been able to. And development has overtaken these kind of...
So in effect, you would prefer a development of our infrastructure to ensure that we have a lot more water rather than, you know, rationing the few that we have processed into homes of everybody.
Yes, if for now the issue is how do we get the water from the sources into our homes?
How do we get it?
That is the question. And that
how do you think we can get the water into our homes?
Is to improve infrastructure. I would say improve it, because that to me is where the challenge is.
So if we do not have improved infrastructure, yes, and we're spending 200 million Ghana cedis in providing the little that we have to the homes of everybody, is that money well spent?
Well, government knows best.
Yeah, but for you, from a research point of view, based on all your analysis of the current situation that we have, based on the fact that you say infrastructure, could we have channeled that into infrastructure?
It's not always that infrastructure is perhaps the golden key. I would say for now, because of the kind of pandemic that we are in as a nation, people desire water. All along, people are being told, wash your hands, whatever it is. And now if you have to wash and you don't have the means, then how do you? And so at least for now, for these 3 months, perhaps we can shelve perhaps the development and make sure as much as possible we can, you know, cut water from wherever it is into people's homes. If it can be done freely, hallelujah to all of us.
Talking about getting water from wherever it is, where are we going to get it from? Bearing in mind all the things that you've told us about our challenges, where will we get it from?
Well, Ghana Water Company is there. We have also the Ghana Water Company, the CWSA, that is Community Water and Sanitation Agency. These are the 2 major water development systems we have in the country. Then, of course, also we have the private tanker developers or tanker services. And then we have individuals, these polytank, you see these Kia trucks having this water. So these are all private-owned systems that people are using to actually make water a bit comfortable. And of late also, because of climate change and because of the problem of getting water easily into homes, most people have now gone also into borehole drilling into homes, which is also alleviating some of these hardships presently. And so for now, if you look at especially for this area, Kumasi, Tema, Kaswa, and you know, generally these areas, there seem to be water. The water reach, according to statistics, is about 80 to 85%.
Yes.
And that means about 500 meters from wherever you are, you should be able to access water. But here we are in the urban cities. And for people to be carrying buckets here and there, each now and then, it's an eyesore. If we had it through our taps in our homes, we would have been happier with this.
So let's look at this situation, and I'm sure, Ghana Water Company consistently has talked about how it has had to ration water. For instance, just 2 months ago in February this year, there was a problem in Secondary Takrady, and they were talking about how the production plant at Daboase, for instance, had reduced from about 5 million liters peak per day to 2.3 million liters for that day. Clearly, that's an indication of the Ghana Water Company Limited not being able to run at full capacity, not being able to supply a lot of water as needed by people, and hence having to ration. Doesn't this tell you that this is something we certainly would struggle to implement?
You see, when the program started, I told you the resource as water, as we call it in Ghana, from all indications, Ghana is endowed.
Yeah, but my question is on, our ability to produce or process this resource into the homes of people.
Yeah, that is what I'm saying, that yes, the ability is where the challenge is, because until recently our water bodies were very neat, quality-wise. You could drink. I have been to the field several times, drinking water directly from the river sources, and we have at those times. But lately you can't do that. Why? It is because we have polluted our water bodies, and therefore, when we say the quantity that you can bring to bear, the issue is, do we really have the quantity? Because the water has been polluted. If it's been polluted, how do you bring it? You have to basically improve the quantity or the quality before you do that. But improving the quality is also very expensive. And therefore, if the government doesn't have money, or the Ghana Water Company or the CWSC doesn't have the means, then it becomes problematic bringing it. Even though the resource is there, the cost of churning that source into your home becomes problematic. Some years back, it wasn't that difficult, but now that is the issue we are all facing. We are all aware of the Galamsey issues that have bedeviled the country. Yeah.
We'll come to these issues, but help me understand something also, because of your research into water and all of that. Naturally, when something is free, we see an increased demand in it.
Yeah.
So should we expect also an increased demand in water based on the fact that water is going to be free? I'm sure you might have seen people already showing videos of how they are using water. Clearly, we're going to see an increased demand in water, aren't we?
Yes.
And if we see an increase in demand of water, what it means is that we have to up our production to be able to meet these demands, right?
Yes.
And you've talked about the fact that the infrastructure is currently unavailable, right?
Yes.
So then it means that this is a policy that, all things being equal, would not achieve its desired goal of the provision of free water to all Ghanaians.
Like I said again, the reason why I said yes and no initially was that yes, because presently those of us within the COVID zones, for ages now, we've been getting water every now and then.
Not every now and then. There are people who've always been complaining.
No, but what I'm saying is that...
But just before you go on, because just this morning on the Super Morning Show on Joy FM, when the Minister of Water Resources and Sanitation joined us, there were lots of complaints about people who do not have access to water. Yeah. They're complaining that they do not have access to water. So it is not a case of us having water all the time. People do not have access to water all the time. You can go ahead.
Yes, people don't have access to water all the time. You see, again, as you could tell, we are in the dry season. And this is, I would say, a little bit prolonged dry season. Usually from January, February, you see at least once or twice some rainfalls. But here we are for some time now. We haven't had until I think last week where we had a bit of water. And when water flows like that, initial rains, they just wash into the river, or what do I call the seas, with that, because it is now that water has to soak in, infiltrate, so that antecedent moistures of the waters will be able to take the water into our rivers, and then we'll have enough water. So for now, we are in the driest of season. And the driest of season, certainly there's depletion. And once there's depletion, the surface waters have also depleted. So yes, but during the rainy season, we have a lot. So the problem is, the issue is, if we do have storage facilities enough, the resource during the rainy season, we do have about 1,300 to 1,400 millimeters of rain annually. And that is enough. If all these water, we will be able to channel and store them well.
Currently, as we are in a prolonged dry season, do we have enough?
If we use the word enough, If you go to Wager, there's so much water. If you go to Volta, there's so much water. And
I mean, do we have enough processed water into our homes?
No, that is not. No.
So it then means that we are going to have a challenge providing free water to all.
Everybody, yes.
Would have that challenge.
Yeah.
Okay, great. You talked about one issue, and it has to do with the commercial persons and those. Throw more light on that. What's your challenge with those who've dug, boreholes and standpipes and have to sell them?
Yes, my issue is if you are actually getting your source of water from Ghana Water Company Limited, certainly it's the government or government has hand in that, and it comes through your tap and you fetch it. That one, if government says, because you have to pay the bill, and government certainly at the end of the day can then decide to waive it off for you. If you're also with the community water and sanitation, which is also with government, then those people you can also decide to take it free, and they will also waive it off for you. But the counter services, the tanker services, who we seem to have them in abundance all over in Accra, they are everywhere. And they are commercializing them for their personal, or it's a way of business for them. They go to the source, they buy the water. Of course, the source, you can get it for free. But how do you convert the water from your home, from the point of fetching to your home? Which means you have to have some infrastructure in place. And that is your vehicle, some fuel, you have to have some driver. All those people are in the chain.
Yes.
And they have to get paid. Well, if government is willing to speak to all these people, that they should bring their names, those who are there, and is going to pay for said people, then for sure, people will be willing to do it for free.
Government says they're going to pay.
But the guy who is in his private area, it's easier said than done for me, the way I see it, because there are a lot of private people who have dug their own private boreholes, and they are doing their private business. If government, how has government come about with these amelioration that you are talking about? So because it's not clear to me, because for those who are having their own boreholes outside and who are selling it privately without any government, they have done their own infrastructure. If the district assembly comes and says we are into it or we are willing to waive it for you, I think I would have a problem. But until such a time that government tells those individual businessmen that he's going to take that, for sure they will charge you when you bring the water. In that sense, it will not be free. So
government says they're going to, they're engaging with them already. They've started the engagements, and so the supplies they embark on will be catered for by government. Government would make payment. So if the tankers go out and they go supply water, it's something that government is telling us we are prepared to bear the cost.
That is what I'm saying. If that is what government says, and it can be done, and the modalities have been put in place such that it can be easily done, then hallelujah, we are all for it.
When you say so that it can be easily done, what is the difficulty about all of this?
You see, because many of them are not registered with any of these areas that we are talking of. Well, they have tanker service, just like we have these taxi drivers and blah blah. Some are with unions, others are doing their own thing in their own way. Those under unions where you can easily, confidently control, call them, talk to, for them to accede to whatever you desire to be done, they will certainly do it. But those who are independently not known within the system, but they are still granting some services for the nation, such people, how do we get them for government to? Because for me, if I have water in my home and I've done it privately and I'm helping, because the cost of digging a borehole is very expensive, and I have dug it, and perhaps helping a colleague to pay my electricity bill, because electricity is, remember, electricity is not free. So such a person, should I tell him I'm not going to give you the water, or if I give you the water, I'm expecting government to come and pay for it, when we don't have those kind of arrangements with government? And so that is why I'm saying, provided there is that arrangement where the individual who is who has water and is willing to share with, so that you can pay and pay some little electricity for him, because you're using the borehole is electricity.
Yes, but if those individuals were to register with the Ghana Water Company Limited and have water supplied to them and they distributed it to people, Wouldn't that solve the problem?
It will solve that. That's what I'm saying. That will solve it.
That is what
that is the ideal situation. But can we have the ideal situation? That is the issue.
You seem to have a problem with the system. You've talked about the ideal situation 2, 3, 4 times. What is your challenge with the ideal situation? What is your challenge with a Ghanaian system that convinces you that we might just not get the ideal situation?
Well, I have a few, just before I came, this issue of it's free, but then a few people have been fighting around some areas.
Where are people fighting at that convinces you that we have a challenge?
No, what I'm saying is that they come and they tell you, yes, I brought you water. You can't just tell them, just discharge the water and go away, because it's brought you the water. I'm
interested in the fact that, so before you came, there were a few people who said they just can't come and say they've discharged water and they're walking away. I mean, explain that to us so we can have a better understanding of it.
Yes, what I'm saying is that, you see, the system, government, the president spoke about this about 3 days ago. And until yesterday, we heard from the press and whatnot that there are modalities being worked for some of these things to happen. For, like I said, for those already under the government's canopy, it is easy. But then we still have a chunk, a sizable percentage, about 15 to 20%, who are privately owned people. What the minister has told us is that those people will also be taken care of. But we are saying the modalities as to how they will be taken care of. As I'm aware, no, not all the places now have been. But then those people are still going about and they are selling the water because they won't give it to you for free. But so provided government is able to iron out these issues, where he brings in the water, he knows government, because you move water from one angle to another, it's about 90 cedis. The water resource itself is about 10-15 cedis. But it's the transportation and the other costs that make it about 75 to 80 cedis more. That 75 to 80 cedis more, his use of his vehicle, his fuel and his cost. Has government actually worked on those? That's what I'm saying. For some, it is easy. But for those, the freelancers, they certainly will be out of it. And so for those seriously private people, individuals, that the way I see it, if we are able to work it out as a people, then it is good for us. But until then, yes, a chunk might get it for free, but there is still going to be a minute number that will still have to buy and pay for it the way it is.
I mean, we'll get to our water bodies shortly, but there's one other thing I want us to talk about, because the minister talks about, providing polytanks to areas that are hard to reach, that will be easily accessible, particularly in urban areas, so they can also have water to drink. And I'm interested in the feasibility of that. How easy or difficult is it to have polytanks provided for people to have water in urban areas?
Polytanks?
Yes.
Well, I have seen around where tanker services come and you see the charge that people, undertake to have their water. And now we are being told COVID, social distancing and all those kind of things. Even the markets, we are being told they are still not acceding to some of these things. And so yeah, the polytanks can bring them. But because a lot of people still don't have the water, and because it's also freebies, anything free, you know how people, see it. They charge for it and then they do whatever they desire because they all want the water. So yes, government can always get the water, or those people, the water tankers can come. But again, the amount of water that they can bring, it's also the issue. You see,
listening to you and going through all the problems that we're likely to face, do you get the impression that this is a hurriedly announced policy and operationalization is now being done?
That is the way I see it. But from what we've heard also, it looks like there were some discussions with people who mattered. But then it's like for the, like I'm saying, the known ones who are the...
Yeah, but when you say that is how I see it, what convinces you that that is the situation? You're talking about how you see it. There certainly should be a reason. And so if you're convinced that it is a hurriedly announced policy and operationalization is going through, that should be the case, rather than also coming in to say you think that a lot more talking was done. If talking was done behind the scenes, then it's not a hurriedly thought through process, is it?
You see, with the situation we are in now as a country, you couldn't foresee anything. And so almost all the issues that come, I mean, from discussions that we hear on TV and the rest, it looks like, yes, the ideas that come from government are good. But at times it takes a bit of time for the implementation to actually get to its perfect position or perfect situation. And so, yes, it has been. So let's see. For all you know, yes, they'll be able to speak to all these people. All the tanker drivers have come under their umbrella. And yes, it's going to happen. But yesterday and this morning, no, it hasn't been so. But perhaps by the time we leave here, these things will have been rationalized, and then life will become easier for everybody.
So the point then is that because of the exigencies of the time, it's been hurriedly implemented. That notwithstanding, you believe that as the days go by, we'll be able to rectify the challenges that we are going to be facing?
I pray so. I pray so.
So you say it's been hurriedly announced?
If you use the word hurriedly, I would say for those in government enclaves, it isn't. But it is. We have about 20 to 30% of people who are doing themselves. They are just living on that. And also such people, that is where the problem is. So for those that government is in charge, that there's no problem there. So you would say whatever government is, one government has said it. As a level of course, Ghana Water Company Limited comes to tell us that they cannot do it. But Ghana Water Company hasn't said that. Community Water and Sanitation has also not said that. And some of these assemblies also have not said that. So some of the tanker services are saying they will see. But those private people, they are the issue. And they are also doing a very good service to the country. And so, because where some of us live, East Legon areas and all this, there's always politicians coming. Okay. Yeah, they're always coming around.
Right, so my guest is Dr. Emmanuel Bequin, who's head of Surface Water Division at the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, and he's also senior research scientist. I've been told that very soon the Deputy Minister in charge of Water Resources and Sanitation, Honorable Michael Jatto. Yes, he's joined us now. He wants to contribute to the conversation. Honorable Jatto, good evening, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening, my brother.
Great. So go ahead and share your thoughts with us. You say you want to contribute. Yes, go ahead.
I realize Mr. Bequin is trying to make some assessments of which we think we want to.
Hello, Honorable Jatto.
Yeah, Mr. Bequin is trying to make some assumptions. Now, government is saying that yes, the president came out to give some directives. We in the ministry think that after the government assumption, we should actually add up and see what the figures will come out with. We will come out with. So immediately, what we did was that we should immediately call all the tanker operators. In Accra, we have close to 81 tanker operators. And President, through the Minister of Sanitation and Water Resources, deem it fit to actually talk to them. As I speak to you now, we've gotten their figures.
Okay.
And we have asked all of them to give us how much they think they can supply. The Ministry of Ghana Water Company, we have actually asked all the fire hydrants to open up for these people to come and fetch. We are going to deploy about 500 of the 10,000 liter polytanks to most communities where there are no water. There's no water.
Okay.
What we are saying is this: we are pleading with the general public that the president has given directives. All those who have boreholes and they are supplying to communities, all the communities where we have community water supply systems, like the small water system, government is going to absorb all their costs, which is part of the bills that Minister for Finance is submitting to Parliament today.
Sure.
So we are trying to look at all this. But for all you know, when we are able to supply the whole country, there are people who are also Ghanaians who might not even be in Ghana, they might be in Togo. So we can't satisfy everybody as we go. But the president has given a directive, and it behoves on the ministry to make sure that at least this directive is fully implemented.
Okay.
So, Mr. Bequin, what we are saying is that, yes, we know that, yes, we have enough surface water, we have enough water. But going forward, what is available is what government is saying that I want to give to people free. So at least it mitigates their suffering while they are home and they are not working. So that is what we are doing now, and we are putting all the measures in place. If you know of any individual who has a borehole in an inaccessible area, and the person feels that he wants to come on board for us to assist in absorbing his bills, we are free to go.
So Honorable Jato, when you say if you know anybody who has a borehole who wants to come on board for his bills to be absorbed, is it a case that some of these people could actually sell? And so in that situation, people would buy from them without the bills being absorbed by government?
As I speak to you now, we have even households where the landlord has been, he has a standpipe, and he's been selling to community.
You've actually negotiated with them not to sell to the communities?
We have negotiated with them that they shouldn't sell to the community because their bills are going to be negative. So if your bill is going to be negative, in this crisis, the president has given directive. You and I, as citizens of this country, we are supposed to support the president so that at least these bills will not be a burden on the ordinary person.
So let's look at the tanker drivers, for instance. Let's even assume for purposes of argument that Ghana Water Company is going to be supplying them with the water. Now, if Ghana Water Company supplies them with the water, they're going to be using their fuel and their vehicle in transporting.
Government is going to absorb that.
Hold on. How is government going to calculate the amount spent in transporting these water? How do you audit to ensure the figures that are being charged are not high figures than the usual?
For now, what we are saying is that, look, Ghana Water, give us the details, because it's not the first time Ghana Water is able to deal with them. They've been dealing with them when we are in when we get to the drought season, as being said by Dr. Pepin. So what we are saying is that let them start supply. Let's get the polytank fixed in all the places. So if, like the footage, I've seen a very big polytank, which is about 10,000 liters. So if we have to get the platform fixed, and then the people, the tanker drivers come, they just come to offload, and then the community will actually serve themselves. Of all this, we know there will be some bottlenecks.
Exactly. So before we get to the bottlenecks, we'll get to the bottlenecks and how you're going to deal with that. But the simple question I've asked you, Honorable Jato, is, so the tanker drivers, and you've talked about how you're negotiating with them. So in your negotiations with them, which stage have you gotten to? Have they told you how much it cost them, apart from the water, to transport water?
That of a 10,000 liter tanker, the 10,000 liter tanker, it costs 90 cedis from the hydrant. When they go to pick the water from the hydrant, they pay 90 cedis. In Tema, they pay to Ghana Water 120 cedis. And when they send to the public, they charge, I think, 230 or something, which Ghana Water is saying that if we take out the 90,000 or the 90 Ghana cedis or the 120 Ghana cedis, the remaining becomes what government is going to pay you for your fuel and your supply.
Okay. Now, you've talked about the fact that you know there will be bottlenecks. What bottlenecks are you anticipating, and how do you intend to solve those bottlenecks?
The bottleneck is that we want to know the number of times the tanker operators can supply in a day. And they are saying that they don't want to come and stand there for people to come with their buckets. And that will delay the number of times they can go. And we are saying that if that is the situation, then let's rush down and get some polytanks and some polytax tanks, such that when they get there, immediately they drop the water, they pump the water into the polytank, and then they can go back and then go and refill and come back. So basically, that's what we want to do at that now.
Okay, so the polytanks that you talk about, have they been installed in these areas for easy accessibility?
We're saying that they should supply immediately while they do the small supplies, and then we'll get back, because one, it has to do with procurement.
When you say, hold on a minute, Honorable Jatto. When you say they should supply to these small things, what are those small things? And when are you going to get back with these polytanks, which has to do with procurement?
So what I'm saying is this. You go to a community where the community is not accessible to water, and the person is going to supply the water to the community. When he gets there, people will come with their buckets. And then you have 10,000 capacity tanker. That 10,000 capacity tanker cannot discharge in buckets until it's finished. But now, because of the exigency of the situation, do with what you have. First, we get the polytank readily, so that when you get there, you drop it into the polytank. You know, we are running from April.
Yes, but before you continue, when you say do with what you have, that's what I want to understand. How do they do with what they have?
So now
how do they dispose of the water?
The tanker will get to the area where they are going to supply the water. They wait for the assemblymen and the people in the area to come with their buckets and their drums, so that at least they are served with the facility. So when it's empty, then the tanker will go back and get some water and come back.
And how do you intend to achieve social distancing in all of this?
And that is what we're saying, that in the long term, which I term the long term, which I consider the long term to be just the end of April, we should be able to fix this problem so we can supply them with water.
Doesn't this confirm my question and the answer that Dr. Bekwin gave, that this is a hurriedly announced policy and operationalization stage is ongoing?
We are not in ordinary times, my brother.
So you admit?
We are not in ordinary times. And the people already have been going to the Tampa in the various communities to queue. So apart from the queuing, this is an alternative to absorb the pressure at queuing points while government takes measures to address this situation. We are not in ordinary times.
Yes, while we admit we are not in ordinary times, part of the thing also with leadership is the fact that leadership would always solve problems, not explaining them to us. And so you, by deciding to do this, would have known. So when you say we are going to have polytanks at vantage points in urban areas, we would know that, okay, so these polytanks are available, we're going to do them. But the bit about people coming in and getting the waters, that's where the issue is. Let's look at the feasibility of it. How feasible is it for these tankers to actually go park at a place, and then people come with gallons and, or buckets and get these waters? Aren't we putting them through too much stress, Honorable Jatto?
You see, of all that you've said, they are very beautiful suggestions. But as I speak,
I'm listening to you, Honorable Jatto. Hello, Honorable Jatto. Well, it looks like we've lost Honorable Jatto. We'll try and get back to Honorable Jatto. But let me get to you, Dr. Bekwin, before we go for a break. So he's coming. He's provided some explanations. You're convinced now?
Yeah, I think it's okay.
But let's look at, you know, the feasibility of having, you know, people coming to queue for water. I mean, isn't that too much stress? People are coming and you have a tanker parked there and people are coming and they're pouring, you know, water into their gallons or what have you.
It's a challenge, but under the circumstances, what can you do? Under the circumstances, because just like he said, we are not in ordinary times. The situation has brought itself, so we'll have to at least do with what we have for now. Because if we don't do it that way, certainly then the social distancing issue will be defeated. Because then everybody still has to go chasing water everywhere, anyhow, and we'll have defeated the purpose for which the whole policy came into being. And so some of us think, yes, it is going to work, provided these things have been
based on what you've heard now, you believe it's going to work.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope that it works.
You hope that it works.
Yeah, no, you see, like I'm saying, you just ask, they are trying to, as much as possible. You might not get 100%. Perhaps if we get about 90%, it's still a plus. Certainly there will be some fallouts, and 90% out of 100. I think we have to score ourselves a grade 8.
Well, since these explanations have been provided, and I'm sure that our viewers will have their own take on the explanations as provided by the Deputy Minister of Water Resources and Sanitation. But one thing I want us to look at, you know, before we wrap it all up, is also our water bodies. You talked about the challenges that we have. When it comes to quantity, we have it. What is it about quality of our water? Okay, so I'm told that Honorable Jatto is joining us again. So let's get back on, you know, conclude that conversation with Honorable Jatto. Yes, Honorable Jatto, you're making a point before the line dropped. Yes, if you could continue.
The situation, the president thinks that in this era of pandemic, what is it that we can do for everybody to get water? People are not even getting the water to even wash their hands. So President says that this is the directive. It behoves on the ministry to make sure that the directive of the President is actually implemented. Okay. So we are going the extra mile to make sure that where there are bottlenecks, we are able to address them. It might not be like in your footage. I can see from your footage that somebody opened and then the water is not even flowing. And we are saying that let's put some interventions in place. But also remember that government is saying that all the water vendors at the various standpoint points in the various communities, government is going to absorb all their costs. So if you are actually a vendor in every community and then you are not able to make some money to pay your salary, government says that we want to absorb it. So that is how come the Minister for Finance is now in Parliament to seek for approval from Parliament.
Okay.
So if that approval is given, all these interventions you are seeing will come. We are running from every May to June. It's our vision as a ministry to make sure that every single soul is given adequate water to wash his hands and then to be able to get water for his basic necessities. Okay, but let's also caution that this is not the time for people to use water for washing of their cars and also cleaning their environment. We want to plead with the general public to conserve water for us, so that at least we have excess water to serve the unserved.
Okay, so let me just get this clarification. You've talked about how you intend to also procure these polytanks and have them fixed. Yes, a quick question. When it comes to the procurement of the polytanks, when are we going to see them fixed in these communities?
The minister has instructed Ghana Water to immediately get about 500 of the 10,000 liter tanks immediately to be deployed throughout the country. So that one, Ghana Water is actually going ahead with the procurement. And that is not all. We want to make sure that at least we have the polytank tanks. Because when you put the polytank on the ground, it will be difficult for people to get water. So they need to procure services of the contractors to actually get the polytank tank. But that notwithstanding, we are saying that the tanker operators should start operating immediately, so that at least going forward, people will get served and be able to get water to wash their hands, whilst we see to operationalizing what the directives of His Excellency the President.
So since we're dealing with abnormal times, it's also important we look at timelines, and I'm interested in timelines myself. So when you talk about immediately procure, what is the timeline or deadline that has been given to Ghana Water to say we should have this procured and installed by this time?
As I speak to you now, the MD of Ghana Water was in the office today to make sure that at least these suppliers can get this polytank supply, and then also make sure that contractors move to site to get the platform worked on. And I know a platform can be worked on in a matter of 3, 4, 5 days. So we should be home and dry by the close of April, so to speak. Okay. And then we'll pick it up on a very level ground going April, 1st April.
Just curious,
I want to thank Dr. Bekwin for his input, and I also want to thank you for the way.
But just before you go, just curious. So these supplies that we're talking about, are we doing giving lots to people so that the procurement process, so that we have different suppliers? We're looking at sole sourcing because of the times we find ourselves in.
That is left in the hands of the MD for Ghana Water.
You didn't discuss all of that when they came to you? We are in
we have given the directive. My minister gave the directive that immediately get the procurement done. They have their suppliers who have been supplying them with goods and services. And I think they have their threshold. If we want to go through the normal procurement process of getting advertised for how many weeks, so to speak, and then getting the procurement processes through, we might not be able to even finish even before the end of June. So I think we need to speed up. And so he has his threshold. We want him to go by his threshold so that at least we can achieve what the president has directed. And so it is a directive, and we need to implement whether we like it.
And so since you say you need to speed up, you're looking at sole sourcing, single sourcing, or restricted tendering?
I leave that in the hands of the MD, who is actually the focal person for this particular.
But it's certainly not going to be competitive bidding.
It can be competitive. They can even source for 3 of their companies who are dealing.
So that's restricted tendering. That's what we're doing.
It can be restricted because they have restricted suppliers. They have actually come out with some filtered suppliers who they have been dealing with. Let's leave it out with them. You see, like you are saying, you yourself, you want the thing done fast, and you want us to look for the normal procurement procedure, which will not work at this stage, where we want to actually satisfy Mr. Bekwin's desire.
So I mean, well, I have just asked you a question. If the normal process wouldn't work, the law makes provision for you to go for single sourcing.
The law gives
that's something you could take advantage of. Yes. So I was just asking to find out how you're going about it. That's all.
I'm saying that we have left that in the hands of the MD, who is a whole company, to deal with his procurement process.
Okay. Well, Honorable Michael Jatto, thank you very much for joining us. So, Honorable Michael Jatto is Deputy Minister in charge of Water Resources and Sanitation. Let me get to you, Dr. Bekwin. We have just 5 minutes to go. And so, we're talking earlier about, some issues to do with the quality of our water. And the fact that quantity-wise we are good, but quality-wise we have a challenge. And I recognize that somewhere in 2017, a research by the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, Water Research Institute, predicted that if care wasn't taken, we were going to be importing water shortly. Are we getting close to that? Bearing in mind that Kofi Annan has told us that the next Third World War is actually at our doorsteps, and that's the battle for water.
Yeah, thanks. Well, for the question to that answer, sometime last year and thereabout, the government decided to do something about these galamsey issues in the country by halting the activities for a while, and then also lifting some of the bans for some of them to continue with their works. Somehow we could all attest, and the evidence is around, that some of the water bodies, we have improved them, but there's still more room for improvement for some of the water bodies as well. And so, yes, as a country, we're going down, but government has brought into place some measures to curtail. We still haven't gone through with that.
But there's been a problem with these measures, the measures that we put in place. And I recognize, and I remember that some time ago I had a discussion with some officials from Water Research Institute, and they talked about how even though the fight at the time was going on well, the quality of water that we needed, we had still not reached there. Yeah, what has changed?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The water, because the issue of the Galamsey is there is, how do I call it, the water weeds issues are there. You know, some legal issues and high concentrations of iron, fluoride, magnesium, etc. in water, seawater intrusions. These are all some of the problems. As a country, work is being done on some of them. But the most serious of it all is the pollution from these miners. And somehow government has come in, even though we haven't reached where we want to. It is improving. We only hope and pray that it will continue. But if that is not done, and we go down spiral the way we saw it some year or so ago, then that study that the Council for Scientific Industrial Research did, my institute did, it certainly will come in some years to come.
And how many years all things being equal?
That I cannot attest, I cannot say much to.
There's been a prediction that if we are not careful, by 2030 we'll be importing water. Is that the case?
Again, it's subjective based on what we are seeing. We might not get there, but let's all pray that we don't get there. Because the measures that have been put in place, I'm sure will ameliorate some of these issues. All
right. Thank you very much, Dr. Emmanuel Bekwing. Dr. Emmanuel Bekwing is the head of Surface Water Division of the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, the Water Research Institute, joining us this evening on Upfront. My name is Winston Amma. Thank you very much on behalf of the production team and everybody for being part of us. See you tomorrow. Have a lovely evening.